serve. Help us listen intently, communicate effectively, and act responsibly, keeping in mind the greater good of all those we serve. May our deliberations reflect the values you've installed in us. May we always remember the responsibility that comes with leadership and service. Enlighten our minds and open our hearts so that we can discern what is right and act accordingly. Lord, please remind us to be grateful for the opportunities we have to make a difference and to lean on you for strength and clarity. In your mighty name we pray. Amen. Amen. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is determination of a quorum. I'm going to call your name. If you can signify by saying aye. Tom Harrison.
Here. Aye.
Tamika White.
Here.
Ernestine Sobel-Goolsby.
Aye.
Al Ford.
Aye.
Leslie Lambert.
Aye.
Ariel Harmer is not with us tonight. Next item is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make an addition to our agenda before we approve. I would like to add a number 8, which would be commissioners' comments.
Okay. Well, there is a number 8 report, so...
Excuse me. Well, 7.A.
8.5?
Yeah.
Okay. Adding commissioners' comments to the agenda.
And for the record, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask whoever does the agenda in the future, I've asked this multiple times, that item be added permanently to our agendas.
All right. You make that part of the motion.
I would like to make that part of my motion.
Okay. All right. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Next item, approval of minutes. I don't have any minutes to approve. Does anybody else? Okay. All right. So we'll defer that. The next item is rules of procedure for public hearings.
Mr. Chairman, bear with us. We had a computer reset.
Oh, okay.
Each speaker must sign their name to the appropriate zoning case sheet and fill out a public comment card. Each speaker must sign their name to the appropriate zoning case sheet and fill out a public comment card to register their intent to speak prior to the start of this meeting. Each item of business shall be handled in the order that it appears on the agenda unless upon motion of the Planning Commission the order is changed. A member of the city or county planning staff will present each item to the Conyers-Rockdale Planning Commission and will further provide a recommendation upon each item of business. The zoning applicant or the agent will state their name and address at the podium and will have 10 minutes in which to make his or her presentation. Any portion of their 10 minutes may be reserved for rebuttal following the opposition to the application. After the applicant's presentation, all registered speakers who wish to speak in favor of the application will then be heard. Prior to speaking upon the item, each registered speaker will state their name and address at the podium. They will also be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Once the applicant has made his or her presentation and the speakers in favor of the application have been heard, the secretary will then call upon the registered speakers in opposition to the application. The opposition shall likewise be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Once the public hearing portion is closed, no other speakers will be heard. As a reminder, speakers are to address the Planning Commission, not the applicant or the audience, and are expected to conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. The use of abusive or profane language shall not be allowed. No debate or argument between speakers shall be permitted. After all public comments have been heard, the Planning Commission may elect to hold general discussion. The Planning Commission will vote upon a recommendation that will continue forward to the City of Conyers City Council or the Rockdale County Board of Commissioners public hearings.
Thank you. Old business, none. New business, City of Conyers. Item C1 is Case 17, 2023, Ordinance 1335. This is a request for a text amendment to Section 8-7-15, specific definitions, and a request for a text amendment to Section 8-7-44N1D, specific standards for urban village suburbia, to provide definitions for bedroom and studio apartment, and to allow studio apartments at 550 square feet in total habitable area in the Gateway Village District and limited to no more than 10% of the total number of units. Applicant Eric Johansson, Universal Planning LLC, 6083 Shadburn Ferry Road, Beaufort, Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to first, before we begin, thank Chris. He worked diligently under pressure to get the computer restarted and get everything going right on time. So
Thanks, Chris.
I don't think I would have been as patient as he was. So the applicant has stated the purpose of this intent is to provide an additional option for a smaller multifamily residence permitting a studio apartment. This smaller multifamily residential unit size will provide a more affordable dwelling for single persons desiring to reside in the City of Conyers that is located within an expanding workforce housing market serving the I-20 corridor. So just kind of give you a little bit of background on the ordinance itself. This is the Gateway Village, Urban Village District that they're requesting the text amendment in. And as you see on the screen above you and in your staff report, here's what the current ordinance states. Talks about the minimum habitable area for all multifamily residents shall be as follows: 1 bedroom, 850 square feet, 2 bedroom, 1,000 square feet, 3, 1,150, 4, 1,200. The applicant is proposing to introduce a new type of unit called a studio apartment at 550 square feet, and as provided in his application, limit that to a maximum of 10% of the total number of units in a complex. The rest of the 1 bedroom, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom would remain the same. So Conyers has not identified what a bedroom is within our zoning ordinances or within any definitions. However, what we have done is adopted the International Property Maintenance Code, which defines a bedroom as any room or space used or intended to be used for sleeping purposes in either a dwelling or sleeping unit. Therefore, a studio apartment, by definition of the International Property Maintenance Code, is a 1-bedroom unit since it contains a space for sleeping purposes. So looking at the request, staff looked at a rental property database called Rent Cafe. In 2022, the average size of all apartments within the Atlanta market was 969 square feet, and within Rockdale Conyers market, the average was 1,042 square feet. Now, it is a common practice for apartment developments to contain larger individual unit sizes that are further away from an urban center. And for those more urban, dense areas, the unit sizes are smaller. There is a correlation between land cost, construction cost, operating expenses, rental cost per square foot, and ultimately market demand and sustainability. I've recently learned as of this afternoon that taxation plays a big part of this as well. When land prices are higher, the developer works to reduce the construction cost in order to fit within a range of rental rates based on square footage of units that the market can support. If the units are smaller, then the construction cost per unit is lower, which in turn theoretically causes the monthly rent rates to be lower. Now on the screen and in your staff reports, I did provide a breakdown of cities and counties nearby and their population, their total area in square miles, and their population per square mile, just to kind of give an understanding or a kind of a snapshot of what we have around us. And also compared that to the minimum square foot of multifamily unit that those jurisdictions allow. And as you see there, Conyers, we're at 11 0.88 square miles. We got a population in 2022 of 1,508, 17,926, and gives us a population per square mile of 1,508. And our minimum square foot is 850. Go on and looking at some of the others compared, so for example, Rockdale County at 93,000 population, 132 square miles. Their minimum square foot is 700. Covington is our neighbor to the east of us, 14,391 is their population, and they're at 900 square foot is their minimum size. So looking at more urban areas such as Doraville, Sugar Hill, Clarkston, and Decatur, all those areas do have comparable populations and population densities. And Doraville is 600 square foot minimum, Sugar Hill 1,000, Clarkston is 700, Decatur there is no minimum. So that tells you a little bit about what's going on around us. With that said, looking at Conyers and looking at our population and our density, staff finds it hard to support the requested text amendment as a definition is already provided for what a bedroom is. And since the Conyers is still a suburban city and does not have the density to demand or encourage smaller rental units at this time. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. If this was a little bit different way for us to analyze and do research on comparison and what's right for your community as far as unit size. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Mr. Johansson is here this evening, and I believe he's got probably quite a bit of information he's prepared to share with you.
Why not create the definition for a studio? I mean, is it?
Well, we already have that definition of a bedroom. So one bedroom.
Well, you got a bedroom, which classifies as one bedroom. Studio is no bedroom. It's basically one room when you can use it as a kitchen, living, and a bath.
Yep.
To the area. So why not create a definition?
Again, going back to the definition that we have used is any room intended for sleeping. If this was a residential unit and you had a king-size bed sitting here and a kitchen there, that's a one-bedroom unit. So it's semantics, splitting the difference between what a one-bedroom. It doesn't define a bedroom has to be a identified room all of its own, intended solely for sleeping.
Well, considering the fact that affordable housing is such a factor these days with what's going on in the county and in surrounding counties, it seems like it would behoove us to create a less expensive alternative, and the 550 square feet would do that, would it not?
In theory.
In theory. Well, why not in actuality?
I think market demands could push that if, and this is pure speculation, I don't have any numbers in front of me, but if I can rent the unit, say at $1.50 a square foot, and then increase that rent later when it only cost me $1.35 a square foot to build, but yet I know someone's willing to pay me $1.75 a square foot, why wouldn't I rent it to them? Or why would I hold it at $1.50 when I know I can rent it for $1.75 and make more money?
Are we protecting the profits of the developer, or are we looking to create housing for people who can't afford a more expensive?
I'm not looking to protect either. I'm looking to give you an option for a text amendment that's before you tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Scott.
Scott, so you're saying the 550 would be less than anybody around?
No, sir. So
So
Decatur does not have a minimum size.
All right, the other
So those that I looked at are
600.
in that range from 600 to 1,000 on those that I looked at. Now, I know Henry County goes as low as 5, but that's a much larger area than what I looked at as far as land size and population density.
I have a question with that in respect to this studio apartment. What do the extended stay, like in-town extended stay, what do they offer? Do they offer, it's like a suite for any given period of time if that's what someone's looking for? I'm just
So-
trying to see if anything compatible out there now, that's all.
I think in size, yes, sir, that the extended stays that we have, like the in-town suites, the budget inn, those are extended stay, those are efficiency units. I think they're around 375, 400 square feet. The difference being is for a multifamily, you're going to have a lease of 6 months or longer, whereas an extended stay is typically day to day or week to week.
When you get into studio apartments, how do you stipulate the number of tenants in one particular studio? Can you say that's a maximum of 2? I mean, because this is to me creates a problem of how many people can go in 550 square. I mean, you can have 3, 4. You can have 4 people to a bedroom. I know that's not you may be opening up that to create another problem.
So with that, that's a very good question, and thank you for asking it. The building code, the International Building Code, has adopted that for a living space, a bedroom space, it is a minimum per person. I want to say for a bedroom space, it's a minimum of 75 square feet per person. With a roof height, a minimum of 6 foot or 7 foot roof height. So, if you 550 divided by 70, I guess you could break it down and say, well, by that standard, you could have 5 people in there.
In a studio apartment, right?
At 550 square feet, yes, ma'am.
And how will that be managed?
Well, realistically, if a 550 square foot unit is built and the property owner leases it to somebody and that somebody puts 5 people in there and a complaint arises, then code enforcement is involved. We notify the tenant, the landlord, that they've got a situation on their hands.
So are there any ordinances now for the 1 bedroom, 2, 3, and 4 as far as how many people can live in them?
Not a zoning ordinance, that's a building code requirement that it limits the amount of people per bedroom. based
All
on
right,
the
so
square
for a
footage.
1 bedroom, what does the building code say?
Well, it's based on the square footage.
Okay, all right, so it's 75.
Please don't quote me
Okay.
on that 75.
You're grabbing that.
I am not a building official, but I believe that it's 70, around 70 square foot identified for a bedroom.
Well, I know we're not Greenwich Village, and where you would pull in, 20 people sleeping on the floor in a 1 bedroom walk-up. But I still think there's a need for something that could accommodate a less of a rental, and the difference between a 550 and an 850 might be something that somebody could make use of. So why not change the definition so that, hey, maybe we could be the first to create a studio apartment definition, and everybody else could say, hey, well, Rockdale's got it, maybe we can do it. We don't always have to follow what other people are doing. It's is about the point I'm making.
Okay.
So anyway,
What is Rockdale's? Do we know what Rockdale's minimum is?
Yes, 700 square feet.
and what do they call that? 700 square feet?
1 bedroom.
That's their 1 bedroom,
Yes, sir.
whereas ours is 850.
Yes, sir. The city says yes, sir.
Scott,
Yes, ma'am.
I know that I guess I'm wondering if the studio is because of the square footage, because, it's just a matter of 1 bedroom versus a studio, just a matter of a door into another room. And as far as the recommendation from a main room to a kitchen, there's really nothing to differentiate it between somebody having a room with an egress window and a door and saying that that's a room, it seems like we should establish it, instead of main room, say bedroom, meaning a bedroom has to occupy that room in order to be classified as that. An office suite could be, with a full kitchen, can be a studio. Are we kind of getting into some gray areas when we do that?
I don't know if necessarily we're getting in gray areas. Our ordinance doesn't identify a bedroom. It doesn't identify a studio, it doesn't identify one bedroom or two bedroom. We fall back on that international code, International Property Maintenance Code, that identifies a one bedroom is a room intended for sleeping purposes. Well, that, in my opinion, would encapsulate what a studio is or what an efficiency is. It would encapsulate everything where sleeping is intended would be a bedroom.
Well, I guess because in certain jurisdictions, you can put an armoire in a room and classify as a bedroom because it has a door, window, and a place to put your clothes. And by just kind of keeping the very generic term, and then you having a smaller square footage that we are not being able to, we don't have any local ordinances that establish like 6 months or less to present any level of transient housing. I mean, it seems like it's kind of open-ended.
It's our ordinance is for the simplistic understanding, how it breaks down: 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. And again, I think maybe there's a misunderstanding that a bedroom has to have a door leading to other rooms. It doesn't. And a big misconception in real estate also is that in order to classify a bedroom, you have to have a closet. No, you don't. It just has to be a room intended for sleeping purposes. If it's intended for sleeping purposes, you mentioned egress. You have to have egress. That is a window and a door, at least a 3-0 door for egress. So whether that's one room with a bed or a space with 2 rooms, one identified for a bed and one identified for a kitchen area.
Right. I guess, for instance, there are other uses in multifamily districts, correct? So say, for instance, what's to stop someone from saying, a bedroom is considered a room with, say, we haven't even established whether or not that has a full kitchen. Could it just have a microwave and a mini refrigerator? Is that considered a studio and apartment? We haven't defined that. So what's to stop someone from living above their office space in that particular district with those particular qualifications?
Okay, maybe I'm not completely following you. If someone has a bed, and a microwave, and a small
And they want to
mini
live
fridge,
above their office suite.
so that's a completely different set of requirements because now you have a mixed use occupancy.
Okay,
of a
so mixed
building.
use would stop that,
And,
okay.
and you've got another layer, if you will, of code to follow as far as separation between your residential and your higher hazard of non-residential below it.
Okay, regardless of whether or not it's in that district.
That's correct.
Okay.
Does the international code define a studio apartment?
It does not.
Who does?
Various zoning boards across the country, I suppose.
Webster's Dictionary?
Maybe so.
Okay.
It sounds like what you're saying is they can call it what they want as long as it's 850 square feet.
No,
But by our current standard, yes, sir, that is correct.
that's
Well, because I was thinking like they can call it what they want, but have you kind of ever thought being in line with Rockdale at 700 instead of 850? Because to me, I think 550 is just a bit too small. I see that creating a problem. Why wouldn't it be suitable to change it to 700?
That is certainly within your commission's authority to make that recommendation. That maybe 550 is not something that is comfortable with this commission. You can recommend 575 if you want, or you can recommend 700. And that's the unique thing about when a text amendment is brought before you, and we discuss it, and you discuss it amongst yourselves. Once you have the information that you're looking for, you guys can make that recommendation. You guys can follow the staff recommendation. You guys can recommend something completely different. So that is within your authority. Or you guys can, in this case, follow what the applicant's requesting.
Because I respect the fact that what you're saying is that we're not densely populated enough for it to have a requirement of a 550 studio apartment minimum. And the city of Conyers is very limited, and we can't answer everybody's housing need.
Right.
That's my thought process. We can't be the answer to everybody's housing needs.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm assuming, we can't regulate if you, say for instance, if we allow studio apartments in this particular jurisdiction, can we regulate that it has to have a 1-year term? It can't be 6 months or less? Can you say, for instance, one occupant? You can't regulate any of that?
No, ma'am. That would not be a zoning standard that we can hold to. Now, like what the applicant has requested is that size with a maximum cap of 10%. So if their project is proposing 300 residential units, then 30 could be that size. So I think, and I don't want to speak for the applicant, but I think that might have been looking at it his way of compromise. I'm not asking for 300 units that are 500 square foot each. I'm asking just for the opportunity to have a diversity of unit sizes within a project. But I'm going to leave that up to the applicant.
Who would govern leases, term lengths and whatnot, if the zoning does not?
That's a civil agreement as a contract between the tenant and the landlord.
So there's no regulatory agency that says, hey, you got this size of apartment, you can't rent it for anything less than 6 months to a year? Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think the Fair Housing Act would allow anything such as that.
And do we have any restrictions against Airbnb rentals?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I think this is something I guess we can ask the applicant, but recommending a studio apartment defined by a main room, kitchen, and bathroom. So I'm not sure how that differs from the one bedroom that has a main room, indicating a separate room. But the applicant can answer that.
And let the record show I'm glad whatever that noise was ended because I can hear.
Okay.
No, you sweat.
Right. All right. Any other questions?
I'm
Thank you.
anxious to hear what the applicant's got to
Yes,
say.
and now, at this time, we'll hear from the applicant.
Inform us.
I'm gonna do my best. Scott does a great job of giving y'all the facts, and over the years, we've debated the code several times, and this is just one of the things that we came up to and had discussions with Scott on, and the recommendation was to present it in the form of a text amendment versus a variance, because it's not a variable item. We did not go through a zoning. We were already zoned, so we weren't afforded the ability to get a change of conditions where the commissioners could have specifically added that to it. One of the things Scott mentioned that he learned today from what I told him, and y'all may not know this, in 2023, all the commercial property owners are going to get their tax bill and they're going to have a cow, is what they're going to have.
Free cow.
And unfortunately, multifamily buildings are considered commercial. So we're commercial, how we get taxed. We get to pay the highest tax rate in the county. They don't have a lot of kids that go to the school historically, so they're not getting the benefit of what they pay. And at the same time, then they're held to residential rules of a house. So the question you asked was speaker here. You asked what the definitions are. So when we were going through this and trying to figure out how does a studio apartment fit into the city, very clear what a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom is. And just for the record, we have a variance that our 1-bedrooms can be 750 square feet, not 850 square feet. That's consistent with the Lennar project and the ECI projects, which went through zoning, and we're giving zoning conditions allowing the same thing. So we're all the same when it comes to that. The particular person we're selling to, Continental Realty or Continental Development, that does multifamily all up and down the East Coast, they have a multifamily, or they have a studio component to their buildings. So when they brought it up, it's a contractual requirement on the sale to us, contingent to the sale. We've already lost one guy because of the taxes being so high, and I'll tell you what those are in a minute. But the definition of a dwelling unit means, this is a city definition, one or more units, one or more rooms designated, occupied, or intended for occupancy as a separate living quarter with cooking, sleeping, and sanitary facilities provided within the dwelling unit for the exclusive use of a single housekeeping unit. I don't know what single housekeeping unit is, but the key word in there is separate. It says separate living, sleeping, cooking, sanitary. A studio apartment, just by its nature, doesn't have a defined bedroom. So if you take out the bedroom itself, the studio unit's no different than a one-bedroom unit. It's the same floor plan for the kitchen, bathroom, living area, and everything else going on. It just doesn't have a defined bedroom unit. Where the studio comes into play is the I-20 corridor, as you know, is booming. You know, there's a lot of growth going up the corridor. There's a lot of growth going that way. So if you're going to live, and we have projects in Newton County, we've done 2 projects so far in Rockdale County. If I'm going to live that way out going towards Augusta, but I want to have the amenities of what it felt like from whatever home was. Let's say I'm the first time college student. You know, I make $75,000 a year. After taxes, I might have $45,000 divided by 12. How do I live off less than $4,000 a month? A studio apartment gives that first time buyer, that guy or girl in the new job market, the ability to live by themselves without a roommate. They just came from college, they had roommates. They get the ability not to have roommates, and it gives them something that's a little more affordable. It's not affordable meaning it's free, it's just cheaper than a 1, 2, and a 3 bedroom unit that you don't need. Gives them the ability to have a little bit of freedom on there. These studios occupy less than 10% of our site. I have a floor plan right here. It's the biggest building on the site. This is a 12-unit building. 34,000 square feet in the building. It's 1 unit on the first floor, second floor, third floor. So this whole discussion that we're having is just, we're talking about a unit on a floor out of 12 units. The makeup of those 12 units on that floor, this is the matrix that's on that plan, the architect's plan. There would be 3 studio apartments, 15 one-bedrooms, 15 two-bedrooms, and 3 three-bedrooms. So the 3 bedrooms aren't what everybody wants to do. They're not trying to pile all the people in they talked about. Most people want 1. You want a little bit more room, but not everybody can afford it. The 2's great if it's a roommate, or maybe you have, you know, it's a 1-child or a 2-child situation. The studio gives an option. It's just like any other business going out there that sells a product. You know, they have options on what they sell. Continental Realty or Continental Development has an option in all of their plans that they've built all over the country that has a studio component in it, and it consists of 1 unit. I asked for the cap at 10%, because if I would have said, can you cap it at 7.3%, it would have been a weird number, you know, so I just said 10. They have 216 units, and they have a total of 18 studios, because they have 6 buildings, 3 per building, so it's 18 total studios in there. Their studio square footage is 553 square feet. Just as an example, the 1-bedroom units are average out to be 848 square feet. So that's 98 square feet bigger than what the minimum is. The minimum on our site is 750. The 2 bedrooms average out to be 1105, which is 105 square feet bigger than the requirement of 1,000 square feet. And the 3 bedrooms average out to be 1334, which is 184 square feet larger than the requirement for the 3 bedroom. So it's not like we're trying to cut corners, and we're not trying to cheapen things up and do anything different. We're trying to have a product that's available of the 216 units, which would equate to a total of 18 units on the site, 3 per building, 1 per floor, that yes, are different. And the difference is they don't have a defined bedroom. So the reason we brought up the ability, I didn't know anything about the International Property Maintenance Guide. I didn't know that. So I figured it would be in the definitions because there's I'm joking, there's 50 pages of definitions. Everything in the city of Conyers zoning ordinance is defined. They've done a great job of defining everything with the exception of a bedroom and a studio. And when you get into the semantics of it, the words matter, and the word in there separate, I think, is the key word in there. A studio doesn't have a separate living area. The tax issue that I was bringing you up to speed on, the average tax in Atlanta on a per unit basis, just across Atlanta, is around $1,900 a unit. It equates to about 10 to 14% of the rent that the renter pays for his unit on an annual basis. $5,200 is what is going to be attributed to these units next year once they're built. Obviously, I got to get built to get taxed. And that equates to about 27% of the rent. So it's double what everything else is going on. Just like any other business, multifamily developers and people that operate multifamily developments, they got to be competitive. Nobody's going to come to me if my rent is time and a half more to offset my tax issue that somebody else has. These studio apartments aren't going to save the day. It's not going to be the end-all be-all to make their tax issue go away, but the development requirements coupled with current construction, coupled with what the market conditions have done on a few developments that have sold recently, they've set the floor for, or the ceilings, what they really set for what apartments are worth in a investor market later. And then you add this tax layer in there. It just, all these things add up and they just add to tough development. With the taxes being what they are on commercial properties, we're asking for this, and I promise you, you're not going to have 10 more applicants in 2024 beating your door down trying to do this because it's not going to work for them. We've had one pass already that we were under contract with. We've had one drop that we were negotiating a contract with because of taxes. We're asking for a little relief, which we've been granted 3 variances so far on the site, which help out. We're asking for one additional text amendment that would allow studio apartments so that we have a little bit more flexibility on this development to make it a great product. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
How much difference would 650 make in your tax digest?
The Continental's plan is 553 square feet. I would have to go back and ask them if they have a 650 square foot model. It seems like it's a little pushing and pulling to get there. It shouldn't be a lot, but 553 is what they're.
Based upon this project here, what would the difference be between a 1-bedroom rent and a studio rent?
That's a good question.
I knew you were going to ask that. So I had Trent send me a text on that. A studio is going to go for $1,300. A 1-bedroom is going to start $1,500. A 2-bedroom $1,800, and a 3-bedroom at $2,150. So it's $200 break, so $2,400 across the year.
For 150 square feet difference, it's $200 variance between the studio and the 1-bedroom.
Yeah, $1,300 to $1,500.
I think it's important to, while we deal with this, we're not voting for this for one particular property. This is every apartment complex in the city of Conyers. So, well, whatever this goes for, or how many units that we're going to have studios in here, really it really doesn't mean anything as we vote on, as we talk about this. Is for every apartment complex.
Mr. Chairman, I think it helps us make that definition, though. I mean, we know the limits to property available in the city of Conyers, and if they are able to put 2 or 3 units of this capability out there, you get ready to yell at me, Scott?
No, sir.
Okay, but I think that the $200 difference between a 1 and a studio, that's a few bags of groceries to a upcoming college kid who just got his first job. It's maybe the car insurance for that month. And I think the city of Conyers, we don't always have to follow what everybody else is doing. We can make some definitions on our own. And I think I feel comfortable with this. So
I just wanted to point out it doesn't pertain to this single property.
yeah, we don't even know where this property is.
Right.
Concept.
Why would an investor not want to invest because he can't 18 apartments out of 200, and it's a call deal?
It's not the investor not wanting to invest in the deal. It's the a lot of apartments in the marketplace, what happens is they get built up, rented up, and once they're rented up, you have a REIT or some other type of fund that buys it, and then they manage it, and they run it just the same way that it is. So when I say that it gets sold, I want to be honest with you, they get sold in the investor market. Continental is a holder. They're not a seller, so they can work through the tax issue unlike another person can. I'll give you an example. It was called Almond, the Village. The Village at Almond Creek was one of the recent sales in this market. And it got dinged from the standpoint of they factored in what the upcoming taxes would be. So when an investor comes in to buy something, they're going to pay what it's worth based on the rents and the longevity of those rents. That sets the market value for what it is. It's property, building, all of it goes in. When you have taxes that are 2.5 times what normal is for them, they're not just going to say, great, I'm going to pay you market rent and I'm going to absorb these taxes. They're going to say, I'm going to ding you for those taxes because we got to pay them. We can't get out of doing the taxes. So now the value for your product goes down. So when the value for the product goes down, that sets the new comp for the area. So if your neighbor next door to you, wanted $500,000 for their house, but for whatever reason they're willing to fire sell it for $250,000, they just screwed you because of what they did. It doesn't matter what their backstory is. That hurt you because the person looking at that comp moving forward, all they see is that. They don't get to see the backstory. In this market, in this investor market that happens outside of any project getting built, it's most all projects, that sets the comp and it moves forward. And I'm not asking you to make a decision on taxes, but taxes are also a component to the cost factor that goes into the overall development. Therefore, some of the variances that we've asked for and other developments that are comparable, the Lennar and the ECI projects, were afforded so that they could be market competitive.
Who's your target market? In the other properties, who's renting the studios?
The studio renters are generally that first time new job, moving to this market. There's a lot of tech jobs, a lot of industrial jobs that are, college degree type jobs that people are coming out this corridor to do. I grew up in Roswell. I live in Swanee. My mom still lives there, but it takes me an hour to go back and forth. Unfortunately, I get to work out of my house, and we did a project in Beaufort. We had an office in Beaufort, so I have never really had a long commute, but commutes factor into where people live and where they work, and if they take a job here, they're going to try to live near the area. There's not this product in the area right now. I'm not saying that everybody else got it right and y'all got it wrong, or what we're asking for is out of the normal. It's just the product's not there, but the demand is there. And the particular person that we are attempting to sell this for that's going to build, develop, and operate this is in their model of what they do. And they're a successful company that is built all up and down the East Coast.
Well, they should have some case study about, who is their target market for the studios, how long, the typical lease is, like how long do the tenants stay in those particular studios?
Sure.
You don't have any.
I don't have that, but in my discussions with them, it's the target for that is that it's that young professional, or it's the person that already has a house somewhere else that works in this area that doesn't want to make that hour commute, that has found an apartment opportunity to spend a couple days during the week there while they have their house they live at on the weekend. It's not the guy with his roommate. It's not let's put a bunk bed where the couch goes and do that. It's truly that person wanting to be independent, young professional. You got to have a decent job to afford $1,300 a month, which that $1,300 a month is just what it is when you start. I mean, it's going to be escalating rent just like everything else is. But in theory, they should be making more money in their job. Their hopes should be to graduate from the studio to a 2-bedroom to a house. I don't think it's their intent to stay in the studio apartment in Conyers the whole time. It's just the option. Conyers has everything that people need from a service, a shopping, a restaurant, a grocery store. Everything's here. So when you're not going to go live out in Social Circle Madison that has nothing and commute back in here to get what you need and go back live over there because you found somebody's side of their house to rent a room. They want to be in that market. Plus you're close to Atlanta. You're less than an hour to Atlanta and everywhere else to go. So it's where this property is located. It's in a thriving area, and it's completely buffered. It's not going to hurt. A studio apartment's not going to hurt anybody around there by having it, and it just provides another option for them to sell. You know, it gives them 4 options versus 3.
Well, it's like I agree that, that studio and that price point might be for like a first year person out of college or something similar. But from all of the information that I've heard, the issue with Conyers is that we didn't have those type of amenities for those persons in that demographic. They like to live closer to downtown. So if we get those particular units, then with those particular price points, and it may be somewhat lower than maybe the surrounding area, then what's to prevent us from actually deteriorating the demographic in that area?
It's a brand new apartment complex, 216 units, and we're talking a total of 18 units out of the complex.
But we're changing the text amendment. I'm trying to get you out of that particular property because we are changing the text amendment,
agree.
which will be applicable to all properties.
I'm trying to make it not specific to my project, but I'm trying to give it to you in context about numbers. You know, you asked me numbers about
Yeah.
rent and everything else for my project, so I'm just trying to let you know the impacts on our project. It's not like there's the ability to put 5,000 in there and we're asking for 500. It's less than 20 out of 216.
You need to be careful when you talk about the social circle. That's where he lives.
May I add, just for point of clarification, please? This text amendment won't change the unit size for multifamily across the city, only in the Gateway Village district, which if you remember, is only those parcels that are, if you can remember what the zoning, I'm sorry, I should have been more clear on how.
That's important.
I apologize.
Yeah.
So I-20 south down to about the Harbor Freight,
Yeah.
former public shopping center. That 138 corridor is only where this applicant has applied to change this text. It would not change the unit size for the residential multifamily zoning district or the mixed-use development district. Those are the other 2 zoning districts where multifamily can be built.
Would it affect the Old Town?
No, sir. So this would only impact.
What percentage of the city's zoning is Gateway Village, Keith? Roughly?
7%. 5 to 7%.
Okay. It's a pretty small amount.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
That's literally,
So
that's swag.
that's important. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah.
And this text amendment would affect Gateway only?
Yes, sir. Gateway Village, Urban Village District, just along 138 from I-20 south.
Okay.
And just a point of clarification for the Gateway Village, Urban Village zoning, yes, we're asking for a small amount of units to be able to do this, but it doesn't take away the building requirements on the site, the parking requirements, the landscaping, the screening, the amenities. We've got 2.5 acres of a stream buffer on the site. There's nothing being deteriorated from the development by having a smaller unit. All of this is inside the walls of the building, which would meet all of the codes of the city, of the air-conditioned entries and all the other stuff. It's the definition. That's why we brought it up. I didn't know how to do it. So when we proposed it, we threw it all out there. It's really the definition of the bedroom. And our contention is a studio doesn't have a bedroom because it doesn't have a separate living quarters. You can put whatever you sleep on, whether it's a bed, a futon, or a couch or a chair, anywhere you want, and you fall asleep in it. Scott would say, and I would agree with him, that's a sleeping area because somebody fell asleep. But at the same time, I think if this was put up to, when you challenge things and people look at it, what would the average person look at it as? I think they look at a bedroom as it's got walls, floor to ceiling walls and the door, and it's separate, like the definition says. So this is another option.
You say this is just semantics, I get possibly, or consisting of a main room, kitchen, and bathroom. How did you come up with? Isn't it more like a combination of a bedroom and kitchen and a separate bathroom?
Again, it depends how you define the
Right.
bedroom. The main room, it'd be like this. It'd be a big room like this, and let's say your dais went up to the ceiling and that was your bathroom. In the main room, there's a kitchen area, and there's the rest of the room. So you have a walled off bathroom
Right.
And then you have the rest of the area. Where you choose to put whatever you put is where somebody could or could not sleep.
Right. So not the bathroom, I think.
It might be warm on the floor.
Only on Friday night.
It really doesn't. Thank you. Any more questions?
No.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody signed up to speak? Nobody signed up.
I have one question. One question. I forgot your name. I'm sorry. Would you be open to? I know. I guess. Well, you know what, Scott. You've already said that we cannot regulate the length of any term. Okay. Never mind.
So no, I wouldn't.
All right. Scott?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe anyone has signed up to speak. We do have a room full of folks that, you know, I don't know if you want to open it to the floor without signing up, but that's up to you. No? Okay. So do I,
Follow the rules.
did I hear you say that the public hearing is closed?
Well, just to follow the regulated rules. All right, public hearing is closed. So we're now in discussion.
Okay, so curiosity, what's people's reticence on this? I'm just trying to understand what your reticence. I come from a world that there are studio apartments and they are first-time people getting out, and so my comfort level may be different because I know what happens. And as far as having concerns about people flipping, I mean, you're signing a year lease, you're putting down a fee, you're checked out like anybody else, you've got to prove you have a job, you've got to prove you can afford it, they're going to look at your credit. So if you're worried about people who aren't in that position, it's not really going to happen.
I really don't think in this case is much worry anyway in terms of where they are in the city.
Yeah.
We're not talking
Right,
much of area.
And the fact that it's limited to that area.
Right. That
You know,
makes
it's
a big-
not spread across the whole city.
Right.
I think this type of rental unit is needed in city of Conyers. I mean, it's on a limited amount of space, you know, with Gateway Village.
Right.
And I think it gives, you know, wherever they're applicable, wherever they can be built, it gives a marketing tool to bring in somebody who says, oh, yeah, I can save $200 a month, you know, living off a trundle bed.
I totally.
It makes sense to me.
I mean, I don't necessarily have any opposition to the studios, but I think, one, because we have not established a studio, that I think we're setting a precedent, whatever we do. So I think that it needs to be more on a stringent if we're setting that particular precedent, because I think that the next time somebody comes in, okay, well, we've established this, well, this person does it in this district, then here's another opportunity for somebody to use it.
We can be comfortable with what they're saying here now, you know, 550. If we, you know, define for City of Conyers that in the Gateway Village, studio apartment is 550, then we've set the precedent.
Right, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with setting precedents.
No, what I'm saying is not establishing that, but establishing what a studio apartment is.
Yeah,
Like, what are those?
I think this definition fits.
Not just square
Fits
footage.
a bill that would be a positive factor in housing for Conyers.
Yeah, and I also agree. And I know that, I'm sorry.
No, you're saying.
I know that studios, and I have lived it, have been anywhere from right around that 525 to 550 marker. That's not unusual.
I don't think this is the format to regulate profitability for the developer to come in and amend the text amendment in order to develop studio apartments within this particular apartment complex. It was, you know, it's just, this is not how I don't think this is how we do business. We come in and amend the text amendment according to what we need when we're developing it. I don't like that format. I think the 550 is a little small. I don't think the 550, we're not in New York. I mean, quite, a studio apartment could be the same footage as a one-bedroom apartment. It could be 700. That's just my thoughts.
But I think I'm kind of following along that line. Not that I have anything against the studios. It's just that I don't, given the demo, where we are, we don't have necessarily a demand at this time. We could create that demand. And what's wrong with 700 square feet? Apparently, this must be something that's pretty standard in the area. Why is it that, what is the reason why we're changing it other than for a tax reason? Or
Well,
what's the reason?
I mean, I think the applicant did a good job of laying out that they've got a particular user for the property, and the particular user has a repertoire of buildings, and this building here has 3 units within it that are less than that 700 square feet or 750 square feet. And that's where, and our ordinance gives them that right, that ability to apply for a text amendment. And that's, you know, that I support the process to get that amended as a professional planner. Yeah, that's being open and transparent and gives your citizens the right and ability to change or affect change within the ordinances that they're governed by. And, you know, for that, I'll always applaud that, whether I professionally agree with what's being requested or not. But as far as, you know, for this particular applicant who's got property within the Gateway Village and they've got an end user identified to develop and own part of that contract to sell or whatever the case may be, it's not really any of my business. That, you know, they've got a product and they can't do the product at that location because of the size limitation.
And that should not be a consideration here. Based on
That's right. Is it appropriate to change the ordinance in the Gateway Village to allow a 550 square foot? The applicant did a great job of explaining, you know, why he's here and why he's asking for it. If they didn't have a client that has a product for it, he wouldn't be here. But, you know, our purpose and our focus is a reduction in size or the creation of a separate unit for 550 square foot, limited to maximum 10% of the overall project size within the Gateway Village. Is that appropriate?
Do you think that sets a precedent? If it went in Gateway Village, does that set a precedent for other zoning categories?
A precedent, probably so. I mean, if a multifamily developer has RM zone property and they said, well, hey, you know, in Gateway Village it's less. Why is it less there? Well, what's the reason behind it? You know, and that's the unique thing about individual text amendments is you guys make that recommendation. Is it appropriate? And the city council makes the determination if a change is appropriate or not. You know, and you guys may look at it and say the reason why we supported this request is because it was only within the Gateway Village District, and the Gateway Village District is not ever expanding, and there's not a whole lot of room for new multifamily unless properties are redeveloped. So that in itself is a little bit limiting. That may be reason enough to say, yeah, I can get behind that. Whereas MXD or mixed use development is a vast, much more larger zoning district, and it could have greater impacts throughout the city.
Well, I think it's already been discussed that the reason for this studio apartment was dealing with the finances of the project. The financials, looking at the income that could be received, expense side of it mainly, I guess, which determines the other side. So that's what I'm having a problem with. That's what I'm having an issue with.
Well, and I think that, yes, you're absolutely right. Expense has a big part in it, but take the expense out, and what you've got look at is 550 square feet. Is the request appropriate for this zoning district? Yes, it's going to impact development, whatever may come. But that's what you've got to ask yourself and answer as a commission. How do y'all believe if it's appropriate or not?
Are the extended stay units that we've got in the city, are they within the Gateway Village District right now? One of them is,
Yes,
I know.
Yes.
both of them
In
are.
town.
Both of them are?
Both of them.
All right. And you indicated that you felt like an average square footage in those units was somewhere around 350?
I think so. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Very small.
So,
Those two complexes started out as your traditional hotel.
right.
One was built intended for extended stay with the efficiency, kitchenettes in them, and the two queen beds, just like a standard hotel where the door is directly to the outside. But yes, those two are within the Gateway Village District.
Do they have a limited stay requirement?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
As long as you want to continue paying, they'll take you.
Okay.
But it's on a weekly basis, right?
And
That's
it
how they-
totals about
they pay
1,300 a
weekly.
month.
Yes, ma'am. It's
That's what I'm
typically
saying.
weekly.
I mean,
Well, I think the difference between the 850, 550, and the 350 is something to consider because the Gateway Village, you said maybe 7 to 8% of are visible right now. I still feel like we need a definition of a studio apartment for that particular area. And not just to go with this particular application or this particular construction or whatnot. I think it's more of what we need for progression in housing for city economy. I think we have to take that into consideration.
Well, so we have one bedroom, 850, so obviously a studio apartment is smaller. What makes sense? How much smaller do you make a studio apartment?
I would say if that's avenue we're gonna go, my thought is 700.
Well,
That's fine.
750 is what it already is for
There
a
we go.
studio, for one bedroom in the county, correct?
700 is the smallest one bedroom in the county.
But the city is
Yeah.
850.
Well, we're talking the city.
Yeah.
Yes, the city is 850 though.
But the county, you said, does not have a studio definition either.
I did not see one in their ordinance, no, sir.
And I think on a larger note, there's been this public outcry for the number of townhomes and multifamily, which whether or not we have a need or not. So not only are we talking about approving this, but we're changing the text amendment to have an even smaller unit. So we're going above and beyond that as well.
I don't know if there's a correlation with that.
Meaning that I guess people are concerned.
We're not.
Well, I think so.
increasing
I think so because now we keep changing a lot of things to allow for multifamily, and now we're reducing the capacity. Now so we're changing.
We're not increasing. This won't increase density.
No, it doesn't. No. Mm-mm.
So I think there isn't as much of a problem as having something called a studio apartment. But question of if we have one in terms of how much square feet it should be is what I'm hearing.
I don't have any problem with the size.
What's that?
I mean, if it's a studio, I don't have any problem with the size. I guess that's the size of studios. Yeah,
The size of studio.
that is the size. It's the typical size of a studio. No, I was just more concerned about the demographic. What is a studio? As far as what are we bringing? That's it.
Just a reminder also that this applicant is requesting the text amendment, but also limiting it to a total of 10% of the overall units per project. So if a project comes in the Gateway Village and they're proposing 300 units, then the maximum would be 10% if the text amendment was approved to introduce this in the Gateway Village.
Well, according to in suburban areas, studio apartments might range from 500 to 700 square feet. So it's kind of give a range.
Google says that.
Artificial intelligence.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
500, 700. Oh, artificial intelligence. Is it?
Okay.
Just
And it was said that these studio apartments would be leased the same as they would a 1, 2, 3, or 4 bedroom. Maybe a year to 6 months, a year.
They'd be done the same way.
Same way.
Yeah.
I think what Scott said is important with the limits also to a certain percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very important. So, any questions or any, we want to make a motion?
And we're changing to add the studio apartments in the district, and we are defining what a studio is, or we're just adding a studio apartment?
That is completely up to you. The applicant's application is to adopt the definition of what a studio is and also introduce it into the Gateway Village district at 550 square feet, the maximum 10% per the project. Staff is saying that we don't need to establish a definition because our definition falls back to the International Property Maintenance Code, which says a bedroom is any room intended for sleeping purposes. But again, that
You say we don't need it, but if we wanted to vote and said we do need it, do we deny the city's request, or do we say, no, we just think it's good?
no,
Same thing.
you guys can recommend against us all day
I'm
long.
trying to figure out how would we phrase a vote if we wanted to.
Well, I think that the city makes a recommendation, just like the county makes
I
a
know,
recommendation.
they
Be the
make
same.
a recommendation to change, to make the text amendment change.
Like,
So
can we
just
say, can we
recommend
say,
they do not change?
No.
Or do we recommend that they,
We're voting on, we recommend whether the text, you want to accept the text amendment proposal or don't. It happens to be from the applicant and not from the city in terms of the text amendment.
okay.
Under the
so-
city's recommendation. I would ask Scott to,
We
if
give
you
a-
were to define a studio apartment, the definition of main room, kitchen, and bathroom, does that make sense to you? Or doesn't?
What's the main room, just like what's the bedroom?
Right.
If this body wants to make a recommendation to the city council to adopt a definition of a studio as was provided by the applicant, then that is well within your authority to do so.
can we make a motion to say full kitchen, not just a,
Oh, you can make a motion of any of it, yes, ma'am. You can adjust that and tweak it. That's what you guys are here for.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a recommendation to approve the request for a text amendment to section 8715, specific definitions, and the request for a text amendment for section 87-44 and 1D, specific standards for urban village arena, to provide definitions for bedroom and studio apartment, to allow studio apartments at 550 square feet in total habitable area in the Gateway Village District and limited to no more than 10% of the total number of units.
Okay. The motion is on the table. Is there a second?
can I add to that motion, or do I have to make a totally different motion?
You'd have to, you'd have to vote on this motion, or Tom can amend his motion.
Well, can you amend it to include a full kitchens, not like a, like a studio with an extended stay, that it'd be a stove?
It's not defined. Is it?
Right, that's what you said that we can do that,
We're not
right?
here for definitions, are we? We're here for.
Yes, sir. If you guys want to set and clarify definition, you have that ability to make that motion.
Was there any mention of, there's no mention of what the, it says kitchen.
But a kitchen,
So-
it can have like a microwave and a
No,
refrigerator.
kitchen definition by building standards
It's
is
with a stove.
with a sink, refrigerator, and a stove.
Mm-hmm.
That's the definition of a kitchen
But
as far as I'm
it's
concerned.
not here.
And
Oh,
it
it isn't.
states
Not a
on the
kitchenette.
studio apartment, a multifamily residence consisting of a main room, kitchen, and bathroom.
So can we say full kitchen in there?
The word kitchen doesn't say full kitchen. You want to just put the word
Can
full
you
in
put
there?
the full, yes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll amend my motion to
Thank you.
put the word full right there in front of the word kitchen under studio apartment.
All right, so
Let the builders figure it out.
They will.
have it. Tom has amended his motion, and on the amended motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Can he amend it to say 700 square instead of 550?
Like 550.
Okay. I can go with, I mean, okay, well, let's
All right,
vote.
all right. Well, I call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay.
So just for,
Well, yeah.
it was,
I'm not sure what
did Al, did you vote?
Did you vote?
I didn't.
Okay, all right. So if you support, raise your hand. Okay.
That's for 550 square feet.
Leslie,
I'd go for more square footage, but
Yeah.
if all against, and Al, you are the deciding person.
I'm for more square footage
Okay.
So you're,
so are you opposed to the motion?
to 500.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're tied.
we're tied. So,
And the fact that we don't have a full tally of all of our planning commissioners sure made a difference tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
So, Mr. Chairman,
yes.
the motion failed. Is there another motion to be
Right,
presented?
you can,
What's the number you looking for in square foot?
700.
Yeah, 700.
Huh?
700.
square feet.
Would you go with 650?
We,
Do I have a 5? Do I have a 6?
You got a
You said
seven.
I fully believe that 550 is reasonable, but I think that
650.
look at the city of
Okay,
Taylor. They have
okay.
no
650.
limits whatsoever. You can put 200 foot square foot.
650. I'll be fine.
if you do
All right,
650, I go
I
with
can
650.
live. I can live.
all right.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to amend my motion one more time.
You're not amending it, you're making a new motion.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a new motion.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I move to approve, and I don't want to read all that again, but I will. Do I need to read it all again? Everything that says in the purpose
Yes.
right in C1?
Yes.
He's
And-
bobbing his head.
It's gotta be full kitchen.
Okay. With the addition of adding it a full kitchen and adding it to 650 square feet for a studio apartment.
We're limited to, and we're 10%?
10%.
And 10%.
Still 10%?
Yes.
650, full
Yeah.
kitchen.
And limited to,
Limited to 10%.
okay, all right. Okay.
Can I get a Hail Mary on that?
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a second? Okay. All right. Any further question? Okay. Further discussion? Okay. All in favor, say
Raise your hand. Raise your hand.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Any opposed? No. Motion passes unanimously. Okay.
Just use 2x2s and not 2x4s. That was too difficult for as simple as it
Well,
should have
the
been.
city council can sort it out.
Oh, I'm going to that meeting, I can tell you that right now. Was that fun?
Loads of fun. That was an hour it took.
We don't have any items, so.
All right. So this is case number 18/2023, ordinance 1339. It's a request for a special use permit to establish materials, manufacturing, storage, and disposal, hazardous and non-hazardous facility at 2084 Lake Industrial Court. The applicant is Cox Automotive Mobility Solutions, Inc. So you can see here on the picture, the site is situated on 12.37 acres. The surrounding parcels are heavily wooded, and it's located within the Quig Branch Business Park. It's developed with a 180,000 square foot warehouse constructed in or around 2000. Currently, the building is vacant. Prior to it being vacant, it was used for the film industry for the last 10 years or so, and then prior to that was Stericycle was the tenant there. The nearest residential structure is approximately 380 feet to the northeast. So for special use permits, it is to provide for uses that are generally compatible with the use characteristics of a zoning district, but that require individual review of their location, design, intensity, configuration, and public facility impact to determine the appropriateness of that use for any particular site in the district. Special use permits may require the imposition of additional conditions to make their uses compatible in their specific context. Let's see. So the applicant is planning to utilize this building as battery diagnostic, storage, logistics, and remanufacturing repair facility to service the emerging electric vehicle industry. During their day-to-day operations is to evaluate battery packs through various testing procedures and then send them to predetermined groups based on their failure modes. After diagnosis, the battery packs are remanufactured or repaired by removing the damaged parts and installing new parts. The facility will have a designated storage area for the battery packs after processing that will store approximately 1,500 to 2,000 battery packs. After completion, the repaired packs are shipped from this location to the customer. So for batteries that arrive and are suspected of being compromised or could pose a risk of igniting, off-gassing, or other danger, they will remain in their DOT-compliant container and placed in a separate quarantine building that is constructed of a non-combustible materials and is located at least 50 feet from the principal building until further testing and evaluation can be conducted. So for this particular location, they are estimating approximately 8 trips a day on average in 2024, and then increasing those trips per day to 26 trips per day by 2028. This site is located within a business park and has access to Sigmund Road and 138 via signalized intersections. So chances are it's not going to pose a risk for high traffic because they are going to intersections to either presumably go onto I-20. I'm sorry. So for manufacturing processing, there are supplemental use standards that the applicant would have to adhere to for that particular use. They are on the screen. They're also in your staff report. I'll point out one of them is that the location cannot be adjacent or across the street from any property that is zoned residential. That's in the city, and this particular site is not located within any of those zoning districts. And then with all special use permits, when we receive a request like this, there are 8 criteria that we look at. I'm not going to go through all of them, but staff's answers to those questions can be also found in the staff report as well. And I'll point out too, special use permits, if they don't obtain the approvals or building permits that are required within 12 months, then the special use permit expires. And then as well as if the use ceases for a period of 12 months, they would have to go through the process again to be this particular type of use. And staff does, staff recommends approval for the request for the special use permit to establish materials, manufacturing, storage, and disposal, hazardous and non-hazardous, in the Industrial Distribution District at 2084 Lake Industrial Court, tax parcel 071001030A, with the following condition. Due to the hazardous nature of elements within battery packs and the chemicals used in them, outdoor storage of any kind shall be prohibited. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. The applicant, Cox Automotive, is here with a presentation, and that presentation may answer any questions that you all may have.
Okay. Questions?
My question would be for the applicant.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, there being none, thank you. We'll now hear from the applicant.
Thank you. I always enjoy a good civics lesson when I come out to the city, different cities. This has been wonderful. My name's Dan Lee, along with my partner Cameron Klein. We're with Freeman Matheson Gary, a law firm in East Cobb. I hail from Sandy Springs, which is the headquarters of Cox Enterprises, the parent company that has been in business for 120 years. And I've been to a lot of these meetings, and I think it's the first time I've ever represented a company that has been in business for 120 years. It's reassuring in many aspects. Our role in this process was to look at the ordinances and the policies to make certain that the intended use or the requested use meets those ordinances and policies. And we're here to affirm to you that they do. The staff has been wonderful and respectful, very thorough in their work. I'm going to be brief because we have some very smart people here. This process that we're asking you to allow goes on in other parts of the country, carried on by Cox Enterprises, Cox Automotive. Today we have the head person, Ms. Lee Malloy, who will not only be in charge of this plant but the others around the country. She's here to answer any questions, along with the senior managing engineer, Matt Davis, is here to answer technical questions. And in many places, the discussion has to do about safety, and we have Mr. Dan Nichols here, who is the Associate Vice President in charge of Environment, Health, and Safety. Mr. Omar El Kamoy will be presenting a very good slideshow of what exactly will go on in the building. And the rest of us are here to answer questions for you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Omar.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
So I'll take a few minutes of your time to take you through.
Bring the mic up closer to you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'll take a few minutes of your time to take you through who we are, why Conyers, and why we want to move into this facility. So is this what I used to? Perfect. Oops. There we go. So my name's Omar El-Komi. I'm a Senior Director for Operations at Cox Automotive. I'm going to take you through about 7 or 8 slides to talk through who Cox is, Cox Automotive, what we do in the service industry for electric vehicle batteries, and why Conyers as well. So, thank you. So, I'm sorry. There we go. I figured it out now. So, starting with Cox Automotive, our vision at Cox Automotive is to truly transform the way people buy, sell, and use cars across the world. We have 28,000 employees globally, many of whom are here in the United States, and they partner, collaborate, innovate with car manufacturers, such as those based in the U.S., with a lot of dealerships, lenders, and a lot of industries that are associated with automotive as well. These customers that I mentioned are truly core to who we serve and what we do. They're our customer base. From inventory and marketing to sales and service, we have a family of brands that you see on the slide. You may be familiar with some of them, such as Autotrader.com or Kelley Blue Book, or maybe have seen a Mannheim auction or location across the country. That's who we are, and these are the brands that are owned by the company. We really are connected through each stage of a car's life. We serve as a trusted resource for moving people and goods efficiently across the country, and we truly strive to help shape the future of the transportation industry. So that's who Cox Automotive is. Cox Automotive is owned by Cox Enterprises. It is a family-owned company that has been around for over 120 years. I believe this year it celebrates 125. Completely privately family-owned, 4th generation. Alex Taylor is the current chairman and CEO of the company. And the Cox puts people at the core of everything it does. So Cox believes in its mission and its vision that people are its most important asset. Company culture emphasizes quality of life, job flexibility, generous benefits, and progressive practices. The other thing that Cox really prioritizes as well is the environment. We're committed to being good stewards of the environment and have long engaged for many decades in eco-friendly practices. Lessening our impact on the environment by managing waste streams and conserving carbon and water. It's not just that for us. it's also about how we do business. So how do we optimize our supply chain? How do we optimize our own operations to be as conservative as possible? So in a nutshell, the company puts people and the planet first, which we then get into more detail of what we do in the specific business unit of batteries. So, excuse me. So our focus is EV battery life cycle management. Long term, what does that really mean? It's all about extending the life of an electric vehicle battery. How can we let it live for longer, so that we can help protect that as much as possible? How do we do that? It's through services like diagnostics of these battery packs, repairing them, remanufacturing them if applicable for the various OEMs, the car manufacturers across the United States and globally. Extending that first life of the battery reduces the need for manufacturing new ones. It reduces the need for mining critical materials. Think of it as an alternative to a new battery. We help enable our clients and the industry itself with these solutions within that ecosystem. Cox Automotive acquired a company called Spears New Technologies, or S&T, about 2 years ago, who is a leading service provider in this space. And that served as a foundational investment for Cox to become a leader in this industry over time. Nobody in the industry has touched as many of these batteries as we have so far. We have just recently completed the industry's largest recall to help an OEM here based in the US to help get cars off the road and repair these batteries inside the vehicles for them. It took us 7 sites, a year and a half, and a lot of different services that we had to provide, but that's who we are for our clients. And we have a team, and I'll show you the next slide, across, if you look at the left-hand side of the slide there, we have a team that's a large team in Oklahoma spread across many sites. That's where the business was founded, Spears New Technologies. We expanded into a facility in Michigan, in Detroit, about 18 months ago, in Vegas last year, and this is where we would like to go next, here in Georgia and here in Conyers. We also have some facilities overseas as well in Europe. You may ask why here. If you look at the map on the right-hand side, this is where all the activity is happening in the automotive industry in this space, in electrification. You see very well-known brands there and companies, and we want to go close to them. So we want to be close to our clients, we want to be close to where the market is growing, and we want to reduce the friction of logistics. Batteries are heavy, batteries are hard to move very long distances, thousands of miles, and the closest we can be to the market is better for our clients, better for the environment as well. Excuse me. In our own facilities and each and every site, we strongly believe and live by these operational pillars that you see. So we put safety at the forefront of everything we do. It comes before production, before anything else. We want everyone that comes into the site, that works there, to go home in the same way they came in at work. It's really nothing more complicated than that, and we can go into some details. As far as quality goes, we want to make it right the first time, always for our clients. We're also a leader in industry standards, which I'll get to in a couple of slides. Creating an environment for our team member to succeed is core to who Cox is as a company, and same around performance and delivering on commitments. And then from a compliance perspective, we always strive to drive and maintain regulatory requirements. We've partnered very closely with authorities in our other jurisdictions, both state and local, whether that's Michigan, whether that's Nevada, to help set the regulatory framework around safety for a lot of this stuff. The industry is very nascent, it's very young, it's very new, and we're at the forefront of continuous improvement, and we work very, very closely with authorities in these jurisdictions, and we hope to do the same here in Conyers as well. So what are the services that we offer? The right-hand side of the slide shows everything that goes on, from engineering services to storage to repair to repurpose and recycling. But what we look to do at Conyers is really those 3 main things in the bullets that you see on the left. So a battery pack comes in, we check that it's safe to enter the building. That's the most important thing. Once it's deemed safe, it's diagnosed. So we diagnose that sick battery, see what's wrong with it. After we do that, we have we repair it or remanufacture or refurbish. That battery may not go out to the client straight away. That may sit in storage in the building for a while. So we either have racking that's built where the batteries go into the racking, or they are put into what the automotive manufacturer has specifically designed for that. So we store them for a while, and then we ship and distribute these batteries across the country. But in this case, it would be the local market and the Southeast. In the beginning, as you heard earlier, I think we plan to employ 20 to 25 people in the facility in the first year, and as things get busier, we think we can peak around 70 on a single shift. We have a very strong commitment to safety, to quality, to efficiency, but we don't just hold ourselves accountable. We meet certain international standards such as ISO 9001 or IATF that have been built with our clients to ensure that we hold ourselves to that very, very high standard. So we build the procedures of what we do to these batteries very, very closely with our clients, and it's very, very strict what we can and cannot do to those batteries. To give you an example, to a battery pack, we remove a lid. We may replace our wiring harnesses. We may take out some battery modules, replace them with other modules. We put it back in place and we test it. We don't do anything that breaks a battery cell, anything of that risky nature. We don't do anything that alters the chemistry of the batteries themselves, analogous to a Lego that we help take apart, put new parts, put it back together, make sure it's fit for purpose. We send it out back to the market again. From a safety perspective, we've already studied the site for the fire protection infrastructure, the water supply, the sprinkler systems. We're working very closely with fire experts that we work with at every single facility. And we found this site and facility to be adequate for the services that we would like to provide in the facility. And in closing, I would like to say that Cox is a company that stands by its mission to empower people today to build a better future for the next generation. We put a lot of stock in our value. The company, the 125-year-old company, is built on integrity, leadership, and community. This facility hopefully brings with it broad impact, including job creation and economic development as well. And for Conyers, we view this as a celebration of community and a celebration for us in transportation innovation as well. Thanks for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
I've got 3 short questions.
Yes,
I
sir.
would assume that since you're trying to stay local with logistics, that possibly Rivian might be a client?
Potentially.
They would?
They could potentially be a
Okay,
client,
but
yeah.
That type of
That's
facility would be a typical client?
So our clients are all OEMs, so it could be a
Okay,
Rivian,
so it could be Hyundai, it could be
General
any of the car
Motors,
manufacturers.
General Motors, Ford, Toyota, Nissan, Jaguar, Land Rover, any of the above, yes.
Second question is, you mentioned the number of people that you will be employing. What would you say would be an average salary for or pay for some of your general employees? Is that a high tech, or is it?
Some of these roles are for battery technicians, what we call battery technicians. We would need an operational manager in the facility. We would need people to manage the warehouse. We would need operators like forklift operators, warehouse operators as well, and we would be employing engineers in the facility as well. So it is really a broad
Across the
range.
board.
Yeah, a broad
Okay.
range of skills that would be required.
All right. My final question: you've got other facilities around the country already?
Yes, sir.
Like this?
Yes, sir.
Have any of these facilities around the country been cited by the EPA, or in Georgia's case, the EPD, or any other activities as far as the environment goes,
No,
as far
sir.
as being fined for leakage or anything of that nature?
No, sir.
That's a good thing. Okay.
Have you had any catastrophic events in any of these? In terms of
None of any catastrophic nature across our sites, but we potentially could have a flare-up in a module or something like that. We have a purposefully designed emergency response plan for every facility that we follow. The best course to follow is usually to try and have that piece of equipment that usually sits on a table with wheels exit the building until it's deemed safe to interact with it in any way. We usually, we're very close to fire authorities in all our other jurisdictions as well, and hope to do the same here. In Oklahoma, for example, we bring in the fire, the fire chief, the fire marshals to come in and see how we do business and to help us with training as well. So these are all things that we hope to build a relationship with the local authorities here as well.
So what's the biggest safety risk in terms of what's the combustible or in terms of the battery?
Usually, for us, the biggest, most common, if I can answer, and Dan, please help if you see otherwise. Usually, it's not within the battery itself, and what I mean by that is these batteries are very large and very heavy, so they can weigh as much as 3,000 to 4,000 pounds, and they're in a wooden structure or a package. So the logistics of moving batteries around the warehouse, pinch points, slip strips and falls, can something fall somewhere? Those are usually what we see the most of, rather than the inherent risk in the safety of the battery itself, just as any industrial warehouse would have, the risks of moving heavy stuff around that go in and out of trucks.
Are these remanufactured batteries just like as good or as efficient as the OEM ones? For example, you get the same mileage out of them? Or?
Yeah, because so usually and every case is different, but when we repair these battery packs, usually we get sections or modules that go into the battery that are brand new, so it's as good as the new thing.
So as far as the industrial distribution, the only chemical or hazardous material that you have is the battery? What others do you have on the site?
It's what's in the battery. There are, for example, we do some things like, for example, we may remove the coolant from the battery. So if we remove the coolant from the battery, we have to put it in a special storage area that's usually bonded, so we don't create any environmental spills. So it's usually what's in the battery, but that is an example of something that may come out, such as the coolant that usually keeps the battery cool in hot weather. That we may designate in a part of the building that we just have to make sure we properly dispose of.
Do you have any, do you store it in disposal drums?
Yeah, they're usually disposal drums that are labeled with safety data sheets that are attached to it. And they're in a bonded area usually, so that if a spill does occur, it's contained in that section of the site.
Okay, so there's nothing really flammable?
No.
Okay, so the wet pipe sprinkler system would extinguish any fire?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
And we have fire extinguishers across all our sites, as well as supplemental fire suppression to the fire sprinklers that are in the building.
So I assume these are lithium. A lot of them are lithium.
A lot of them are lithium ion.
Are the lithium packets, are they ever broken, disturbed?
No.
Or they stay intact?
We don't break the cells.
The seal's never broken on the lithium packets? Okay.
Never, no.
Would the batteries, I'm just asking because technical, would they have acid in them at all? Would the batteries have acid in it?
Matt, do you know the answer to this?
Step up to the mic so we can hear you.
Sorry.
Tell us your name.
I'm Matt Davis, the senior engineering manager. It's not a classic acid. There's an electrolyte in there. I don't know how versed you guys are in chemistry, but there's bases and acids. It really depends on the chemistry of the cell that you're dealing with and whether or not it's more of a base or an acid, what that electrolyte is made out of.
What's the capacity of how many batteries you would have in there at one time? Would it be thousands, tens, hundreds, or just
so at capacity it would be low thousands, so like a couple of thousand battery packs. Yes.
Okay.
You had mentioned the environment as far as how the batteries are kept. So are they shipped certain times of the day, or maybe the DOT compliant container resolves that, and if you ship it in any condition outside the walls?
Yeah, so there's actually very stringent DOT requirements on shipping these battery packs. So they're within DOT approved containers, especially if these are battery packs that are not brand new, that are deemed that need repair. So they're all shipped in very specific DOT approved containers that go on the back of trucks.
Well, is that certain times of day, anytime?
Usually for us it's within operating hours. So if we operate a day shift, it would be maybe between the hours of 7 and 4.
What is your policy on? Or you say you do repair on these? what typically is the condition that created the repair? Is it a wreck that the car was involved in, or is it just something that the battery, malfunctioned and needed repair? What what I'm getting at is, did you ever get them in that you said, whoa, we don't need to keep that one here because it's been damaged too far?
Yeah, they're definitely usually.
And how is that determined?
They're not of a bad state, and Matt, do you want to share more detail on the condition of the battery packs?
Yeah, when do you throw a flag up and say, no, we're not taking that one?
Yeah, typically if there's severe physical damage, which is pretty rare, we quarantine it and we will check it with flare guns, things like that, to see if there's any kind of hot spots developing in that. We'll do isolation checks for the safety of our operators using, voltage meters, things like that.
Is it a highly regulated industry at this point? I mean, it's a pretty new industry. Is it highly regulated with OSHA, et cetera?
Well, OSHA, yeah, but the regulation for it is more centered around, DOT and manufacturing. It's in this weird area where you are getting a lot of regulation across the board on dealing with these types of batteries, but it's not based on any hazards that have actually come up. It's just based on the fear of a hazard that might actually happen, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
presentation.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody signed up to speak? Nope. Okay. All right. So we now close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I got to hear her recommendation.
Okay. All right. Well, you recommended approval.
I recommended approval with the condition that
Okay.
there be no outdoor storage of any kind.
Right. That's the only, no outdoor storage.
No outdoor storage.
Any questions for that?
I was just wondering, they're saying how they bring in the fire marshals and let them, could that be a condition that is a requirement to bring in the city or Rockdale fire marshals to, I know it's maybe customary, just if it's, just make sure that it takes place.
I think that's.
Yeah, so the fire department does do annual inspections, fire inspections, and then if the applicant decides to do any type of building modifications or install any type of racking, those plans do have to be approved by the fire marshal before we issue any kind of permits.
Applicant has no problem.
Okay, because it was just saying, you guys had said how you establish a relationship with the fire department. So, yeah. So, okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, we'll close the public hearing. And any discussion or motions?
Mr. Chairman, it's an up-and-coming industry, and I think that the credentials for this company seem to be pretty straightforward. So I would like to make a motion for the request to approve the request for a special use permit to establish materials manufacturing, storage, and disposal for hazardous and non-hazardous facility in case number 18, ordinance 1339.
And with the condition, city's condition, no outdoor storage?
Yes. Where was that?
Up there.
That's not, okay. Yeah, for the outdoor storage. I missed that little item number 1 there, yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, so motion to approve with the condition that no outdoor storage.
I second.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, that was the easy one. None opposed. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right, then moving on to item RC, case 19-2023, ordinance 1336, a request for a text amendment to section 878, relationship with the comprehensive plan, assign the appropriate future land use designation to the red district.
So,
City of Conyers.
thank you. So the city council adopted the recreation and entertainment district zoning classification, and now we have to assign a future land use designation to that. We currently have the special mixed use activity center as a land use designation in the future land use map in the comp plan and within the zoning ordinance itself. A special mixed use activity center is areas are designed to encourage flexibility and combining land uses to produce compact, connected, economically viable centers. Employment, shopping, and recreation opportunities are within or in close proximity to the centers. Each will include a variety of travel options such as roadways, walking, biking, and transit when available. That probably should be if available. Neighborhoods will include a mix of residential options to accommodate variety among incomes and households. So that is the land use category. It's kind of broad scale. And if you remember, you have the land use categories. In order to accommodate those goals within that, you identify zoning districts. So what we're asking for tonight is a recommendation to approve placing the red district into the future land use category of special mixed use activity center.
Can you come up with a different acronym?
Probably so.
Never mind.
Red light.
Just keep your reminds me of a red light district.
Maybe that was done on purpose.
The red district. Okay.
Right. Okay.
For tourism.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the request for the text amendment for sections 878, relationships with the comprehensive plan, to assign the appropriate future land use designation to the R.E.D. Ordinance 1336.
All right, motion to approve the text amendment. Second. Was that a second?
Yes.
That was a second.
Sounded like one.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? Motion passes. Item Rockdale County, none. Reports City of Conyers, none. Rockdale County, none. And the next item will be comments from the board.
I'm disappointed that we don't have a full house and we're not on camera, but I would like to make the request that our comments be included in the minutes so that they can be reviewed by citizens and anybody that would like to see our comments. I would like to make a change in the procedures of the way that our reports are issued. Not in the manner that they're issued, but in the advertisement of them. All of our findings currently, when the city presents to the city council, they make mention that the planning commission voted X number of yeas and nays to deny or approve. But this is not currently the procedure for the BOC. I would like to encourage them, Christopher, to include the planning commission's motions so that when they're in their voting mode for the things that we have discussed, everyone knows what was going on. And I would also like to reiterate what I'm doing tonight, and that's making comments on the agenda. I would like for our agenda to permanently reflect a spot on the agenda for commission comments. The next one is, my next comment is going to be a little problematic, controversial, whatever. But 3 times in 2023, we have had to have 2 meetings in a month due to various reasons, whether it be advertising, newspaper, or whatever, which required us to meet twice in a month. And that's problematic. I would like the powers that be it city, be it county, to work toward preventing this situation from occurring in the future. And lastly, I would like to bring up something that a friend of mine mentioned to me, who is a member of the Lawrenceville Planning Commission. City of Lawrenceville has their own planning commission, different than Gwinnett County. Gwinnett's got theirs and Lawrenceville has one. And that's the item of compensation. He asked me once, he said, well, are y'all compensated for your meetings? And I said, no. He said, well, we're compensated $75 per meeting. They have a population of 32,000 in the city of Lawrenceville. And so I started doing a survey of all the adjoining counties and municipalities in the area, and I found some interesting statistics. Other than Lawrenceville, Walton County, with a population of 96,000, pays their planning commission $75 per meeting. Gwinnett County, with a much larger population of 965,000, pays their planning commission $175 per meeting. The most remarkable one is Henry County, with only 241,000 residents. They pay their planning commission $250 per month or per meeting. These are all based upon attendance. You show up at the meeting, and I don't know the different procedures of how they compensate. Of the areas in our immediate zone that do not compensate, Newton County with 112,000 residents does not. Social Circle with 7,000 residents does not, and neither does Conyers/Rockdale with 17,000 and 92,000 respectively. So whether it's to encourage good control of when the meetings are going to be, or just look at the time and effort that we put into attending these meetings. It's been said that, oh, we don't want to do that because, you know, all the other volunteer boards might want to do it. Well, let them worry about that on their own. Our situation is that we put a lot of time and effort into planning, reviewing the data, and based upon the other municipalities and county entities in the area, I think it's only fair that we consider one of two things, and that's one, compensate us at an amount that would be agreeable to the two entities that we represent, or to split the two entities and have a Conyers Planning Commission and a Rockdale Planning Commission, much like Gwinnett and Lawrenceville have done. I wanted to put that out there. I would like to have it appear in the minutes and see what we can go from there. So that's my comments for the night. Anybody else want to add to that? Be my guest.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Is there any other comments? Appreciate it. I do think it's a good idea to have the comments from the board added. Give us a chance to publicly just give our opinion about things. All right. On that note, the next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting is, no one else is here to hear it, but next week is next week for a special called meeting, 6 o'clock. Did you want to say something before we?
He does.
Yeah.
I can see it in his eyes.
Mr. Chairman, I would appreciate the opportunity. What I saw tonight with case number 1 was absolutely the perfect reason why you guys are in those seats. That was a very courteous, diplomatic discussion you guys had, and you came up to a consensus. Not everybody agreed with it, and that conversation took place, and y'all have put forth a motion that you all may have been comfortable with because you voted for it. That was a democratic process at work. I appreciate that. I'm a fan of the process because the process does work. So I want to say thank you for working through that in the manner that you did. That way it allows us to go back as staff, explain the process that took place and the discussions that took place at this level, and put forth your recommendation to the city council. I do appreciate it.
I applaud, Scott, I applaud the fact that you do make mention to the council of what our conversations were and whether we voted for it, against it, what the split was, and the reasons thereof, which makes it a better process and makes it a process that should be carried on. I wish the county did the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's important. I'm not sure what they hear. Do they even know what we talk about?
Well, let me kind of be clear
How
real
do
quick.
they hear?
So let me be clear. When we do our recommendations, we do state planning commission recommendation, and then we also state staff recommendation, and then we state what you guys recommend or why you didn't recommend. We state those clearly out on the record. Now, I don't know why, I can't speak for the board, but please understand that staff does indicate and often mention why planning commission recommended whatever they recommended. I just want that to be clear. That's all I'm gonna say.
But it's always in kind of like a work session or in a session where.
No, it's during our zoning public hearing. Again, after I go through my presentation, I often say planning commission recommended denial and give so reason, but then after that, I ask what the staff recommended. Staff recommended this, and that's usually how I end our presentation and then allow the applicant to present. So I just want to be very clear that let everybody who's watching, who is not watching, Rockdale County planning staff always provides recommendation from the planning commission and from staff, and we put that in our staff reports as well too. So I just want to be clear.
It's in the reports. That's good.
It's in the report, and again, I just want to be clear. We do not get up there and say, "Hey, this is our recommendation." No, this is the planning commission recommendation. This is what they recommended for this at this point in time. And again, we state why you recommend it at that point in time as well.
I guess what concerns me sometimes is the times when they totally go 180 on us.
I understand. I say, but again, that's what every elected official's priority, or not priority. I should say their ability. They can do that. But again, I want to make it clear because Scott would do the same thing. It's our duty to present the information as well as a recommendation from what you guys tell us. We are not in the position to say, "Hey, this is what we do," or disregard your recommendation. That's not what our job is.
Chris, do you normally mention it in the work session? Because I listen very carefully in the voting session.
We don't mention it during the work session because we don't give a presentation during the work session. Our presentation is usually during the public hearings.
Correct.
Work sessions, the voting sessions, those documentation is already presented to them.
The one they had in the big room.
That's
where you mentioned.
That is where we mention that. That is again. That would be essentially the city council meeting and so forth. And then the work session, the voting session, we don't do presentations at all. All that information again is all still presented in their packet and so forth.
And I would hope they study these requests as much as we do and know what's going on. So there's a lot of things presented. I'll just bring up the mineral extraction thing. So, bring up something that's not said. A lot of research we did, a lot of stuff we presented why, the problems with it.
Environmental.
A bunch of stuff. I don't even know if they heard it. I don't even know they studied it. So that would, that does concern me. A lot of work that we put into it does it go to them? Do they even listen? I question that sometimes. I'll just be honest. But anyway. All right.
There's only one thing I want to say. I think everything that's been touched on here at the comment section is gratitude. And that's gratitude out of respect for the input, for what we do, how we come, how we committed, how we're concerned about how the county is going forward. So all this is gratitude. And I think the question is does the BOC hear or feel the gratitude that takes place upon this committee and brought forth? And that is a concern.
Duly noted. My comments will be saved or served now at this point in time if we want to discuss that further, but that's duly noted, and then
We're proud of what both departments, both planning departments do
Yeah.
for the county and the city.
This is nothing on the planning department. So, and I think I say as a board here, we get along great. We don't always agree on everything, but I think we love each other and.
Kumbaya.
Or we like it.
Tom almost hit me a little while ago. It's all right. But we love you, Al.
Totally dangerous.
Well,
Adjourn.
okay.
I'll make a
Scott
motion.
wants to go home, so does everybody else. Time to adjourn. And a motion to adjourn?
Motion to,
Okay, all right. Motion adjourned.
second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Yeah, you have to go, Jess. We're keeping you long.